Yo boys, back with another video. Today we're going to be doing a good old-fashioned PvP tier list. Keep in mind, I've done this video a few times, so I kind of know where everything's going to be. That being said, these are not in order. I know a lot of people in the comments will be like, oh, well, why is this in front of this? Yeah, well, we're going to get that right out the way. These are not in perfect order. They're not in order really at all. The casters are on the left, the melees are on the right. That's about it. First off, S tier is going to be pretty much very selective. There's only going to be 2 or 3 specs in the S tier. Everything else is lower. A plus tier means it's eligible for S tier, but it's not necessarily as good as the 2 that I'm going to be putting. A tier kind of means viable, but it's not the greatest. Anything lower means it's terrible. That being said, we're getting straight off with the number 1 or number 2 spec. It's arguable. BM Hunter does a ton of damage. Defensively, it's super strong. You have everything you want as a BM Hunter right now. There's no reason you should be playing any other Hunter spec other than maybe MM Hunter that's, coming up. Otherwise, BM Hunter is definitely the best. The next one, the one that is the arguable to number 1 or 2, is going to be Rep Paladin. These are my top 2 picks for the S tier. You guys can argue which one's better, but I'm putting a BM on the side anyway because it's caster. Even though Rep Paladins are considered casters now that they can literally hit you from 20 yards away for no reason as a melee, kind of like an Unholy DK or a Survival Hunter. Those two are going to be the number 1 and 2. That's pretty much that. The next one we have is going to be Outlaw Rogue, which is going to be our first B tier spec. B tier basically means it is bad all around. Now again, any rank 1 player can make this class work or spec. However, that does not mean the class is good. So just because, Johnny can log on Rogue and destroy doesn't mean it's good. It just means he got lucky RNG or the person playing it has a good amount of experience. A normal player logging on this spec is not going to do any good as it, which means it's probably not that good. The next spec that I'm going to argue that's just as bad is going to be Augmentation Evoker. These two are I would say Blood DK is honestly as good as these specs right now. Blood DK, I don't know if you guys have seen, but I would say specifically in 2v2 Arena it is the only viable blood spec of tank that I've seen. They basically have an absorbing ability that absorbs healing, and then they do a ton of burst damage. I don't know if anybody have seen it. Maybe I'll have to record a video of me getting hit by one. They do a lot of damage. The only downside is obviously if it's a blood DK facing somebody good, the blood DK usually loses. Because you want to go the healer at that point, or sometimes even the blood DK can die. That being said, we're gonna go straight off with the first A plus tier, which is gonna be MM Hunter. MM Hunters do a ton of burst damage. The only downside is obviously they're predictable like a Sub Rogue or Frost DK. On the other hand, they do a ton of burst damage, and I don't really see them not being A plus tier just due to the fact that their pure burst is still really insane. They still do a ton of damage, and they're still pretty good. They're pretty good still for now. The next one we have is going to be Assassination Rogue, easily A plus tier as well. Still growing strong, definitely the best rogue spec right now for sure. It's not even close. Assassination is still your go-to pick. Then it goes Sub Rogue, and then it goes Outlaw. That being said, Assassination is way too good not to play rather than the other specs that we're going to be, choosing here. The next one we have is going to be Sub Rogue, our first just normal A list here, and you'll see why I put it here. Its burst is predictable. Now, while it does do a good amount of burst, it sucks. It honestly is just trash. It has nothing to offer but its burst, and the only comp you're going to be able to make it work with is like a mage. Rogue mage, that's it. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to beat just normal players at a 2K level CR versus players that play anything that's above A plus tier. It's gonna feel just a match made in non-heaven. So trust me, it's not gonna feel great. It is still viable. That's why I'm putting it at A tier. That being said, it's not that great. The next one we have is Survival Hunter, which is actually pretty solid as well. Same thing with Sub Rogue. It's viable in a sense, but it really only has one comp you can play now that it got nerfed. At the beginning, it was hitting like 6 mil strikes, which made it really insane at the beginning. Then it got nerfed, and then they were still doing, 100 0ing in 3 or 4 seconds. I don't really see them anymore, so I highly doubt they're still doing that. But even if they are, I wasn't really seeing them to begin with, so it was like, while they may be viable, they're not great. The next one we have is going to be Destro Warlock, another really good caster, easily A plus tier. Their Havoc coil bolts to your face are just diabolical. You play Destro Assassination Rogue, Destro SP specifically is my favorite comp to play just because they just do so much burst damage. It's ridiculous. Destro Warlock's doing really well right now. Definitely the best lock spec in the game. However, talking about another really good spec is going to be Demo Warlock. Now, Demo Warlocks aren't as strong as Destros or really any of the other A plus tier lists in terms of damage. However, in everything else, they deserve to be up here. They have a lot of CC. Defensively, they're one of the strongest by default because it is a Warlock. They have CC, and when they do their burst damage, they are still really strong. So while they can't keep up in damage necessarily versus some specs, that's not necessarily the point of being at A plus tier. It just means it can compete. The next one we have is going to be Boomy, another really insane spec. The fact that they still have two incarms automatically puts the spec really high up on the list. Now, even if they didn't have two incarns anymore, they would still be up on this list at A plus tier by default. They have a ton of CC. Their burst damage is overwhelming because it lasts for so long. Now there are downsides like facing a shaman, but that's kind of besides the point. Just because you get countered by one class doesn't necessarily mean the class is bad. That's just how it is for everybody. So yeah, Boomy's doing really good right now. Pharaoh Druid is kind of in the same boat. Now I have some mixed feelings about Pharaoh Druid. It's arguably high A, but I'm gonna put it at A plus just because it does an overwhelming amount of damage as well. Defensively though, I'd say it's one of the worst specs in the A plus tier leaderboard just because they actually flop. They die really quick, especially in like twos or in threes in solo shuffle. They do flop pretty quick. You know, you can do a hard swap on them with no trinket, and they can die 100-0 on an off go. So it's pretty wild, but they still are really strong. The next one we have is going to be DH, another really strong spec. Um, it's kind of a no-brainer still. They haven't been hard nerfs, so they're still doing a lot of damage, and just due to the fact of how easy it is to play this spec, automatically makes it a very low skill gap. You go in there, as long as you're using defensive CDs on burst damage, you're usually pretty chilling. It's not very difficult. However, if you do defensively play bad, I can see DH being really bad versus like rogues and stuff like that just because you actually have to play semi-okay versus rogues rather than like versus a Demo Warlock or something like that. The next one we have is going to be Fury Warrior, same boat as Arms Warrior. Again, these are not in specific order, I'm just putting them up here. Um, Arms Warrior and Fury Warrior, both A plus tier, they still do a ton of burst damage. I don't really see them being just A tier, considering how, you know, these guys are A tier. So yeah, still really good. I'd say Warriors are still up in the leaderboard, pretty high up on here too. I still see Warriors a lot. Now I don't see them as much as like a Ret or a BM Hunter, but you definitely do see them a lot. The next one we have is going to be Devoker, another A plus tier spec. They do a ton of burst damage. Their CC is really insane. The only downsides is defensively they can be bad at times depending on who you're facing. However, they do counter a lot of things too, like assassination rogues, pharaoh druids, stuff like that. There's downsides, but there's also upsides as well. The next one we have is Arcane Mage. Not really that good right now. After the nerf they received at the very beginning of the season when they were literally one-shotting like 20 million Arcane Blasts, or whatever they were casting to do that instant, I don't know what it's called. After they get that got nerfed, they were still doing an insane amount of burst damage. Then, I don't know what kind of happened after that. I don't know if they got nerfed again, but I don't really see them anymore. The main reason I feel like Arcane Mages aren't as good anymore is because people have realized don't let the guy ever get Arcane Surge off after the beginning of the match, and you're good. The only time you can ever die is like a sub rogue. Just literally save everything and peel on blades, and you're chilling. So I guess that's what people have realized what they need to do, and that's all there is to it. The next spec we have is Frost Mage, kind of in the same board. I would say Frost is better, just defensively, having two blocks is nice, but they're still both not that great. I don't really see Frost Mages anymore. Same thing with Arcane Mages, you just don't really see them much. You do, however, see a lot of Fire Mages. So speaking about Fire Mages, surprisingly, they're actually pretty high up on this list. They do a ton of burst damage. Their Ignite build, on top of it, makes them do a ton of AoE. So not only do they have a lot of single target burst, but their Ignite gives them enough damage to keep up in the pressure. That's the only reason they're up on this list in the first place. Otherwise, without them doing the damage that they're doing right now, they would go right back down. And Mage would actually be in a pretty bad spot. But since Fire Mage is actually coming up, I would say Fire Mage is the best mage spec for sure. The next one we have is Elemental Shaman. Easily A plus tier, just due to the fact that it has overwhelming defensive CDs on top of that 45-second primordial wave burst that absolutely just kills really quick. And then obviously grounding totem, tremor totem stacked. You just have so much to stop things from happening. So that's a bonus. The next one we have is going to be Unholy DK, another really insane spec. Unholy DKs do a disgusting amount of burst right now. I don't know if you guys are facing Unholy DK, but trust me, take my word for it. They are really good right now. It's basically Assassination Rogue on steroids. So they're chilling. They're doing good. No more buffs. No more buffs. The next one, speaking about another good spec, we have SP, another really good spec. Again, we have a lot of A plus here on the list here. That doesn't mean they're as good as these guys, but they're close in a way. These guys are very close to being S tier, if not S tier. So anything at this list is close to S tier. They're close enough to compete with these guys. That being said, we're going to one class that doesn't compete. I would say Enhancement Shaman is not that good, but it's still good enough to rival Sub Rogue. So I would say still good enough. Enhancement Shamans still do a ton of burst damage. They're basically a fire mage. However, they still are a melee, which kind of tunes them down because it is kind of hard as an Enhancement Shaman to actually go in there without dying instantly. So that's the downside. The next one we have is going to be Frost DK, another not so good spec right now, if I'm being honest. It does a lot of burst damage, but it's so predictable. It's not even, it's a joke. Obviously, if you're a bad player and you face a Frost DK, you would think it absolutely is insane. But anybody with the IQ of 1 probably knows what to do. You basically need to have one teammate prioritize peeling on burst, or you prioritize using your CDs on burst. Otherwise, they can't really do much to you. They do a ton of burst damage. It is predictable. A really good Frost DK, though, can control a matchup, but otherwise, if I were to just log on a Frost DK, I probably wouldn't beat like these guys up here. Um, the next one we have is going to be Affliction Warlock. Afi is kind of in a solid spot, but I wouldn't say it's just A plus tier yet. I think Destro and Demo still overshadow Afi. Same thing with these other casters. I do think Afi has really good potential though. It does a lot of burst damage. You play like Assassination or Pharaoh Druid, Affliction Warlock, and you can definitely destroy. But other than that, it's singular. It's not. It's viable like these guys, but I wouldn't say it's these guys level yet. Speaking about these guys level, we have Windwalker, easily A plus here. Now I would say it's not necessarily as good as like an Unholy DK or a Warrior, but it is up there still. It does a ton of burst damage. If you're a good Windwalker, you can still win games. I had no doubt in my mind you can. The next one we have is going to be Resto Druid, which is easily just normal A. I've seen some people put it down to B. That is absolutely insane. Resto Druid still do a ton of healing, and it's not just their healing. Mobility, CC, especially CC, and the fact that they can drink in stealth, that right there puts them in a whole different category. Now, while they might not defensively be the greatest, offensively, and they have everything else you could want other than defensively. If you do face a Resto Druid and you're not going the Druid, you're probably going to feel like it's broken, but at the moment you realize, oh, I just need to do a go on this guy and I get every CD, then you realize, oh, well, they can die. The next one we have is going to be Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman is one of the best specs in the game in terms of healing. Now, personally, if I had to get the healer ratio, it would probably look something like this. So, Disc Priest, Prez Evoker. So I'd say these two are the best. The next one we have is probably these guys. So I'd say these guys are up here. So Disc Priest, Prez Evoker, maybe even Wrestle Shot. Maybe these three are the best, honestly, just for pure healing wise. They're just really good. Then we have Mistweaver, H-Pal. Personally, I don't feel like Holy Priest is that great. I have seen somebody put it really high up on the list. I honestly haven't faced one in such a long time. Unless they buff the thing to make Holy Priest broken, all they would have to do is put Guardian like an Ironbark, and they would automatically be high S tier on this list due to the fact that they don't have any defensive CDs for the teammate. I just don't see a Holy Priest being able to out heal the damage that's going out right now. Every one of these guys have a defensive cooldown for their teammate. This guy has nothing. They have nothing. The Guardian is not a damage reduction spell, and it would need to be like Iron Bark or Sack for it to be viable. I still don't see, even if they were doing their Shadowlands healing, the amount of damage going out right now is just, I just see them getting overwhelmed, and after your Serenities run out, you're pretty much just dead. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I know it was a little bit quicker than I normally do, but I have done this video 6 times. Probably 12 by this time. So let me know what you guys thought about the video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We will have some guides coming out, so keep that in mind. The next few days, I'll try to get some guides out for you guys. That being said, it's Ben X. Peace, peace.